today?
Joining after long, Mati. Nothing for now.
Okay. Anyone else? Karthikeyan, Robert, or Monica? You have any questions you want to discuss?
Yeah, I have a question. So recently I gone through that interview with the client round. So they were asking me about if you have two stakeholders, that is, you are going to handle a two Scrum team with the different stakeholders for the different product. So each stakeholder will be giving you a suggestion to process their own way. So in which way you'll be taking the team to follow, or you will follow this only one or single process in Scrum? So this was the question asked by the client.
No, can you repeat the question? I mean, even I'm not clear about the question. You have a
No.
two different team.
Yeah, different team with
following
different
stakeholders. Okay.
And they are the different stakeholders. That is, two stakeholders asking to follow the different process. So one stakeholder having their own process, the another stakeholder is having another process. So they are asking me to follow a different process. In that situation, how will you take that forward?
See, the question is not clear, right? I mean, so you need to understand what process they wanted to follow. Maybe, see, did you ask about that? I mean, unless and until you know what is a process, then how will you be able to tell them?
What I answered is, in Scrum, we have only one process. We cannot depend on the stakeholder, how they are going to asking us to follow their process in a project, right? In a product.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I replied. In Scrum, we have only one single process. So
process here, what do you mean by process here? I mean, as per you, I'm talking about. You answered some question. So what is the process you are defining here?
So like in Scrum, we have like from the stage of discovery meeting to retrospective. So each and every process we follow, right? For that particular sprint when we start initially.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a process we follow as a Scrum or as a Scrum Master. But some of the stakeholders, they might not know what is Scrum or what is Agile, the entire process, what we follow for the particular sprint or particular product. So they might have different kind of process. You don't want to follow this meeting, or you don't want to facilitate this particular ceremony. So in that case, how will you handle that?
Okay, but what was the reply from you from the interviewer for your question or your answer?
They are just good. That's it.
Okay. So ideally, I mean, Shaili and Selvi, you are here. Help me understand. See, Scrum has events and artifacts. That's not called as process. Is my statement right?
Yeah, but they have mentioned like process.
No. I mean, just for clarification, Saili and Selvi is here. Let's hear from them.
Mati.
Yeah, Karthi.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think if I'm in that situation, I would first ask, you mean about any process inside the Scrum, because Scrum itself is in a framework.
Yep.
So first we need to clarify with the interviewer that is the stakeholders suggesting a process inside the Scrum or outside of the Scrum? Are they aware of the Scrum? Maybe interviewer or the stakeholder is saying that he is talking about the Scrum only, but he did not use the framework but the process. Then you can actually have a meeting with him, because you have a supporter in one stakeholder at least, so that you will get in a higher hand. So you both together can discuss with the other stakeholders.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is a little bit convincing answer, Robert. See, otherwise, like ask. I mean, anyways, whenever you get a questions like this, get something clarified, because just for the sake of questions, somebody from the interview panel they're asking it. That's fine, but get this clarity.
Okay.
Otherwise, I mean, what I feel is maybe they are talking about Kanban or Agile or Safe, any other framework they're considering as a framework. I mean, as a process, right? Some stakeholder in our organization also, if you think any one client will ask, I want to follow Kanban. Some other stakeholder will say, I want to follow Safe. So on a big picture, somebody who is outside, they will think, okay, Scrum, you are following Scrum, that's a process. Some other team is following Safe, that is a process. So get the correct idea behind the question, and then
Okay.
try to answer it. I mean, whatever you answered is okay, but
Okay.
to better it, I mean, to make it better, probe the interviewer, so he also will be aware, okay, this guy is asking some more questions, or if he's really great guy, then he will try to answer it. Otherwise, he will try to skip the question.
Okay. Okay.
It gives a perspective that, okay, you know something better than me, so let's not drill down more on this one, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Or
maybe
maybe
Well
we
said,
can try
Mati.
to.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes, I'll be here.
Robert.
No, I just said well said, Mati.
Okay.
I have one point to add, Madhi, like maybe the stakeholder also not aware whether even to follow agile methodology itself, right? That may also be, there is always a confusion between the words methodology, framework and process. So
Right.
don't know whether, first of all, they are really wanting agile itself, we don't know. So if that is the case, we need to understand what is their current methodology. If it is waterfall, then what are the pros and cons in the current system, and then explain whether agile is really required, because it is not because we are attending Scrum Master interview, all projects should also go for agile, because still there are projects which are phenomenally doing good with waterfall, because they don't need any kind of agile methodology to be placed. So that is also one point we can check. As you rightly mentioned, directly putting the questions to interviewer will help us in understanding, first of all, whether they want to take agile. If agile, then what is the framework? Then that is a different scenario. But whether they are really in need of agile itself is a question, I believe.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're trying to mislead you that whether you will come up with this, you'll try to explain them this is not a process but a framework, and what kind of process you are talking about. So they may be trying to mislead you as well.
Yeah, that is also possible. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question that let's say that you want to, it's not asked in any interview, but I read somewhere, I just wanted to get clarified that you and your product owner are trying to estimate a project duration based on your user stories, and usually that if you do the t-set sizing, then you can estimate the project duration, right?
Yep.
So once that is done, when you actually come down to story estimation for more slicing, then you can follow the Fibonacci or Popper card, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Karthi, you go ahead.
No, I just want to clarify, is this the right way or not?
See, there is no right or wrong way, but ideally speaking, for any larger, this is how it is, no, epic, user story, then task. So each place I mean they identified certain methods to estimate the stories or estimation. If it is a larger one, they are using t-shirt sizing because they don't know how big it is. Okay, they are trying to put it in different buckets. Then after that, they are trying to still further come down, and they are drilling down into task level. Then they're trying to estimate. So this is the ideal methodology, but ideal way they're following it. That is how it is followed actually.
Right, because usually when you want to calculate or given a project duration, you cannot slice it down to task level. So usually a t-shirt sizing is followed.
Yeah.
But have you anyone ever heard or came across that someone who is doing t-shirt sizing for the story estimation as well? Because I heard from someone and I was quite surprised because it is a bit difficult to exactly estimate to slice it down to tasks when you're following a t-shirt sizing.
So we had used Karthikeyan.
T-shirt sizing for
Yes.
the story estimation as well.
Yes, because
Okay.
see, there is always a challenge. One thing for a new team who are new to Agile, if you start putting Fibonacci series, always people tend to ask questions. So one means what? One is 1 day, 1 hour. What is that? 8 means okay. 8 means 8 hours or 8 days. So these questions generally come when you are in a very new team who are new to Agile. So to avoid that questions and to make there is nothing called as hours or days. We are using something completely relative, and there is no relevance to units of time. We wanted to utilize this t-shirt sizing. How for every Fibonacci series values also we have some kind of representation like, okay, on an average 8 story point means we will take for one sprint maximum 8 story points a person can hold if the capacity is completely available for 10 working days. 8 stories the maximum, and that's the bandwidth the person can make it. Similar way, we will also ensure large is something that we will go for 8 story points. So we have some kind of representation, and we as a team also use that as a reference, but we have used it and it worked well. And there is one more team we have used instead of 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, we have used it 10, 20, 30, 50, 80 also, just to again avoid the confusion of, definitely it cannot be 10 days because 10 days is the maximum for any sprint if you are following 2-week sprint cadence. So that is how we ensure that the team is getting more familiar with using the story points rather than confusing with the units of time. So this is one thing, it helped us for a new team actually.
Okay. And then based on this, you also followed the relative sizing or not?
Yes, completely it is relative sizing, but instead of Fibonacci series, we follow t-shirt sizing. See, t-shirt sizing, as you put for project timeline, why we use is it holds a bigger bucket, right? Than 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. It holds like we can put in weeks, but it is all up to us how we are going to make that reference list. See, for project timeline, the same t-shirt sizing we used to refer for management, saying that if it is small means it is 2 weeks. Large means it is like 4 weeks. But when it comes to team, we will not use that reference because that is not interesting for team, because we will not go for 2 weeks, 4 weeks in any of the reference within the team. So that is how we separate. But it worked for us in team level also in user stories.
Okay. And so, though you don't give the timeline, but you still, once you identify that this particular your story is in a medium, still
Yes.
you slice it down to tasks, right?
Yeah, everything remains the same, but instead of using Fibonacci series, we were using the t-shirt sizing. That is the only thing. And how a subtask will be created and tasking level, hours calculation, hours estimation will be happening. Those things are very normal, like anywhere. But only thing is, instead of Fibonacci series, we use the t-shirt sizes.
Okay. Super. Thank you so much.
Hey Selvi, following to this discussion, I had a question if I can ask.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, right, usually we follow the practice of, any sprint, suppose it's a 2 weeks sprint, so 10 days, and we don't go beyond 8 points because that's something that we could achieve predictably. So, can it happen ever that, considering the story points are not only given only the work required, but it's also complexity and value add and everything. So these are various aspects that we consider while giving a points to the story, right? So it's also possible, right? Suppose an 8 pointer can be finished in less than 10 days, but a 5 pointer can take longer than that. That could be a possibility, right? Or it's like direct, proportion. Like if a 5 pointer has to finish before an 8 pointer finishes, that's not the scenario, right, in general?
No, that is a scenario like 5 pointers should get finished before 8 story points. So
Okay.
when you are estimating the story, you should consider different factors. Like
Okay.
as you mentioned, complexity, the involved dependencies and risk, what is the business value that we are trying to deliver and what is the effort. So
Yeah.
all these factors you will be considering when you are estimating a user story. So when you are estimating, that estimation point, anyone if they are seeing within the team, because team to team it will differ. When someone is seeing within the team, they should be able to understand whether this comes under a critical story, means it has
Okay.
so many things to do, or it is something like a cakewalk story, which is like a free flow, or something that comes under medium or something hard. Your story point will be explicitly giving a representation to people. Okay. So
Okay.
if you are putting 13 story points, why we don't encourage 13 story points is because of this. That means you cannot complete the work within a particular sprint because the complexity is more. That means what you need to do when you are refining the story itself, you are able to understand 30 story points is not recommended for your team. Then we are trying to add multiple things in that story. That's what we can understand from that story, which means you are trying to do so many things. For example, I want to add a particular item, then delete an item, edit the item. All these things cannot be taken care in one sprint, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not once. I cannot say it is not taken care in one sprint, at least not in one
Assume.
sprint. So what you need to do is there comes the art of splitting the story. So you should ensure that a story has a goal, but it should not have too many goals. Then the problem is not only for developer to develop it, it is a problem for tester to test it, because there will be so many use cases, right? How they will be also managing that, because when your story grows with so many goals, your acceptance criteria will grow. When your acceptance criteria grows, your acceptance test count will grow. When your acceptance test count will grow, obviously you cannot complete that within the period of sprint.
Right.
So this is all internally connected. So your story point, for a person who is not at all aware what the story is doing also, if seeing that, hey, this is something that a team can manage because it is 5 story points. Oh, it is 13, then team cannot manage. That is the representation we are trying to give to people who are not even aware of what is the thing. Like your stakeholders suddenly checking what is your sprint planning report. All the stories are with 13 story points.
Actually, my question was a bit different in the direction. So let me give you a scenario, probably then it is clear. So what I wanted to ask you is, I had this in previous work project actually, that consider there was there is a feature that in terms of development and test efforts, right, it was pretty much like a medium, I mean a 5 pointer. Okay, the code path was pretty simple, test effort was also simple. But when you want to roll this feature in production, we needed some kind of infrastructure to be ready. And before the customers could use that, we had to, once that infrastructure is ready, we had to ensure that our tests work with that also. Okay, so considering all this, means it was 5 pointer, but it took less than 10 days. But another story was 8 pointers. Oh, sorry, I mean the other way around. 8 pointer story was less complexity, but you know, it has dependencies more. That's what I want to say. So I am asking you, if the points of the story and the days it takes, does it have to be always directly proportional? I mean,
Yeah,
if you take
it should be directly proportional. Otherwise, we
Okay.
will not be able to understand. See, even though
Okay,
we
okay,
say
got it.
that there is no relation between the days and story points and only effort and story points, but that's what I'm trying to say. Like 5 means people should get, okay, this should be completed. This will be completed within 7 to 8 working days. 8 story
Okay,
points
okay,
means
now I see.
completely completed. And to your question, I think you posted in the group also, right? Like their
Yeah.
infrastructure setup.
Right.
I want to add one more thing on that. You should not club anytime the test setup related activities as part of the story that you are
Okay.
delivering a value. That is a separate value, because if it should be a part of your planning sprint, or if it is even in the mid of the sprint also, you should create a separate story. The value that you are going to deliver out of that sprint is not for the customer or the stakeholder. It's not a functional value, but it is a value
Okay.
for your upcoming stories that are going to be used. Right? Your setup
Okay.
used for
Okay.
other stories. So if you try to club that with one more story, definitely it will take 13 story points, because the
Got it.
complexity is more, right?
Right.
So you cannot complete. So this is where we need to slice the stories or split the stories in such a way it should not club with so many goals.
Okay.
And one more thing is, with number of story points, more and more story points, it is the complexity and the criticality of the user story or the work item is also more, and it will give directly a meaning that it is going to take more time, which is not going to come within our bucket of a sprint.
Got it. Okay, so okay, this is very useful actually. So you are saying, I mean, it is a valid scenario, right? That every time it may not be a business value, but it is a valuable outcome that our infrastructure is ready. So that is kind of a dependency we have. So we complete it as one story in one sprint, and then the next sprint maybe we can actually start working on that story. So this is a valid case. That's what you are trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. So it is not necessary always the value that we give to the customer or the stakeholders. It may be for our internal team for the upcoming work. Like we are doing a spike. The spike outcome is going to enable something for us in the future. And for one mistake what we do is we tend to separate the activities based on stories. For example, development story, testing story. That is not right, because no value out of only testing work. There is no value only out of development work. But test setup, test environment preparation is a value addition to our project. So that should be separated as a story, and it should be treated as a separate use case.
But I have one more question. I mean, this scenario we faced as a QA team a lot, that, you know, sometimes what happens, we were testing the feature in the same sprint many times, but when it comes to automation, right, if it's a qualification heavy story and we have a lot of scenarios to cover, so what we used to do is we used to pick up like high priority tests for automation, like P0, at least this much has to be automated. But we used to have some automation backlog. So how do we handle such things? Means story is delivered with, you know, we used to do some amount of manual tests, but automation was not fully, sometimes we were not able to do that. So how do we handle such things? So that becomes like a technical debt or what? I mean, if automation coverage is not complete in the same story.
See, there are two ways in handling, depends on the maturity of your product.
Okay.
If your product is in a very beginning state, you may not have your stability in the product, even with manual itself, right? You will find a lot of bugs. So there is no good strategy to initiate the automation, because your manual testing team or the manual tester itself will not be able to tell the feasibility. So in those cases, what we will do, we will not add separately it is all about definition of done, right? When you accept a story, when you are making the checklist definition of done achieved. So you should not add automation related things as part of your definition of done. In another scenario, there are like whatever you have mentioned, you will not add all your test cases to be automated in the same sprint. What you will be doing is like you will be maintaining a priority based test cases. Like the sanity level test cases. If I test this, then I can check whether this functionality is sanity available with sanity or not, at least to high level. So those kind of test cases alone you will automate, and remaining test cases you will put it in your backlog and make it as a separate user story that should deliver a value based on automation separately.
Okay, but then won't it be like a QA only story, or that's all right?
No, that is not a QA activity, right? That is making your framework, automation framework with the number of test cases getting automated, right? That is the value. That is not an active based value. See, login page is there. You are developing a login page and you are not testing. Can you deliver it to your customer? No. Until and unless testing is done. Right. I am only testing some page, but the developer have not fixed the bugs. Can I deliver it? No. Because value is not delivered. So for those kind of user stories, we need to see what is the value. Let's take automation. You are automating certain test cases. This is giving a value for your product, which means tomorrow when your product is getting released, you no need to deliver with the help of manual test cases. Instead, you can have your automation test running and you can deliver it. So that is the value addition you are bringing to your product, right? When you automate certain test cases, there is a value. But what is only you are doing a testing work for a story? What is the value? There is no value. So that's how we need to separate it, because I have seen people putting title itself testing : this one. That is a placeholder. That is not a story, right? In that case.
Right, but then I understand your point, but I'm just asking in a practical scenario. Then, if I had to do this, suppose in one sprint, my team says that there were 50 tests that we had to run. Product is stable, we could cover it, and only 20 of them are automated, 30 are remaining, but they are P1 kind of, less priority test. With this 20, we can assure every day if this test suite is running, we can ensure this feature is stable. So you are saying that we as a team, we can decide that if for next any other future sprint, we can create a story that automate these 30 tests.
Yeah, you can do that, but don't go by feature. Then you will start diluting your definition of done. See.
Okay, so how do you suggest I put a story for this remaining backlog?
See, first of all, if 50 test cases are coming in a story, that means the story itself is big. That's what I can understand.
Oh, no, actually, okay, 50 may be a high number. So what I wanted to say is we have multiple platforms where same feature has to be qualified. So that's where I'm coming from. So suppose,
there will be some places where they will do different OS testing, different browser testing.
Cloud platform is different. Like
if
that.
Those kind of product, you need to do as part of your definition of done only, what will be the practical implementation which is feasible for you. Will it be, are you be the reason going to stop your story closure? Are you means the testing people?
Got it. Yeah.
If no, I cannot complete the automation. Okay, the story is blocked, because at the end it is all about definition of done. So you need to somewhere make that's the beauty of having this definition of done, because as a team we are getting into an alignment, what is feasible, what is not feasible.
Okay, so in that case, would it be okay if I say, suppose now example, my feature has to work on Google Cloud, Amazon and Azure example. So can I say that for one story, we will just give a support for Azure? So we can only cover the Azure part of validation in terms of qualification. But
see, that depends on your priority of your product nature. If you have more clients who has Google Cloud users, then you will go with that. And your second and third priorities with Azure and AWS, then you will be picking up on that order. Or you will be picking in all the three platforms, you should have the priority.
Basic, okay.
One test case should move on. Other all is like second level test cases, which can be taken as part of the backlog.
Understood. Okay, makes sense. So how you slice is, and again, there is no certain rule, but we have to, as a team, we have to decide what is required, or so slicing has to be done definitely.
Exactly. Okay. The more and more you use that user story splitting, user story slicing as a part of your refinement, that is how we will be make it as a easy execution in our actual sprints. Otherwise, see, the more and more customization is also a little problem, because when we say customize, people will start diluting it in a way like, okay, I'll write DevOps on story, development on story, testing on story. That is not the way it should be.
Yeah. See, because because what happens is the dev guys would say that for me efforts is same no matter whichever cloud platform, but QA has to test it on different platforms. So that's when the real difficulty arises. How do we slice? That's why I wanted to understand this part.
Yeah, so this should be, and this is not going to happen in one sprint or very first time. And you will understand the practical problems or challenges you face as part of sprint execution, and you need to start collecting the retrospective comments as part of your team.
Got it.
And then you should be keep on improvising on what best will be taken care in our project, so that everyone will be able to manage the work also, because looks like in this case more and more work is on testing side on the other on development side. So
Yeah,
somewhere we need to balance it, right?
understand. Got it. Okay, thank you, Selvi.
Okay, no problem. I think other people also can add. I think I have taken so much time. Please share your points as well.
Sylvie, it is not that you have taken much of a time, but whether you have added more inputs to understand the situation or not. That was very good suggestions. And also
I agree.
I would like to add something that at one point of time, ours is a web-based product, and we support both MS SQL and Oracle. And at one point of time, we were doing a one story, and to implement that for the Oracle, it is more complex than for the MS SQL. So developer wanted to start with the Oracle, but our customers are 98% of customers are on MS SQL and only 2% on Oracle. So at that time, it should be your choice that whether you go along with the developer or not. In our case, that it is required that we should support the MS SQL customers first, right? So we ask them to implement for the MS SQL, then we can pick up the Oracle for the next sprint. So that once we release that version, only we can suggest in the release notes that the people with MS SQL can proceed with this, and Oracle people, please stop it until our next release. So this way also you can plan your stories, or even when you want to test it, because until a complete testing is finished, you cannot say that your story is actually finished. So you also have to take in that think in that direction.
Yeah.
Am I
Okay.
right?
Yeah, Karthikeya, that was a valid point actually. Right.
Gunchan, you want to discuss the point we discussed 2 days before? Or you found the answer? Okay. Okay. Selvi, Gunjan's question was in his team. They are trying to do a new. I mean, it's a new service or a new product altogether. So whenever the team picks up the user story, there are different approach to that, and they start the development, and only at the end of the sprint or when they complete it, they are able to know whether it is working or not. If it is not working, they scrap that sprint and then take the next approach. Say for example, one user story has 3 approach, and after completing each approach, only they come to know whether that is a solution or not. So every time the team is doing like this, because they want to do research and the development has to be done. After that only they will complete the give the solution. So his question was, how can I optimize this one? Because every time he goes to the team, they're telling that I'm doing research on this one. But what is the outcome? There is no outcome. At the end of the sprint, they're telling that, okay, we have developed this one, tested, but it is not a solution. Now we'll go in for the third option.
So the development process may be like the coding through which they want to develop actually. That is not working first time. So again, they try to get another way. Okay. And even they are facing some new challenges like the deployment issues. Okay. So in past, they never faced those issues, but now they are getting those issues and they are working on those issues, but they are not getting resolved it. They are not getting, not able to resolve it actually. Okay. Even they got support from the architect, but again, architect is saying like, the things are totally new, the new development they are doing. So they again, they will be facing some challenges as well. And we came to a conclusion like let's increase the story point somewhere with the estimations like buffer as well. Okay, but I do feel like that is also not going to help somewhere because today they are saying like they will be using one approach, but if it is not working, they are going to use second approach, then third. Okay, so there should be an end somewhere. But finally we are not reaching to a solution, and the things are getting spilled over a lot actually.
One question, Gunjan, like when we are not sure about what we are going to work, how are they estimating even at the start of the sprint?
No, they know what to develop actually, but how to develop as a developer, that is the problem for them. Something new they are working on, a new techno, maybe the coding part which they are trying to use, that is not working for them. Yeah, so they know what to develop, but not how to develop. How is the problem statement for now?
But even in that case, then I see like I know where to go, but I don't know whether I will be using car or bus or train. Means I cannot predict when I will reach, right? So how are they estimating in that case?
Just looking at the assumptions, like whatever the business people are sharing with them, the business analysts or the functional designers are sharing with them, they try to estimate on that part.
Okay, because this seems to be like some kind of spike which cannot be estimated. Same way they are also working. So in that case, rather than concentrating on estimation, how to reduce this time? Why can't you time box these things? Like give 1 week time, and whatever you have reached in that approach, tell us where you are. And if it is working, let's proceed. If it's not working, let's scrap now itself, so that you can at least save your second week, right?
But even if you are scrapping that part, okay, we don't know what is the solution actually now. We scrap the first way, okay, we said uh, which we tried, that is not working, okay. Even if we scrap that part, but we need the solution also now, and we don't have the proper channel actually through which we can get the solution.
No, this using sprint iterations is not going to help for this kind of problem, like because anyway you don't have any kind of timeline bounded. But are stakeholders aware of this information, and all your user stories are this kind of nature, or it happens like every now and then?
For all the stories on which they are working, this is a new enhancement actually, okay, and
Okay.
most of the stories have these issues. We have already communicated further with these issues. We have told them actually. In fact, there was conversations which is like, if the things are not working, the approach they are going to use, maybe after some time they are going to scrap everything. Maybe they will find a new way, or maybe they are going to say no to the further teams.
See, then this is not even coming under any kind of like execution, project execution. This is more like a idea innovation study or something like even not even coming under NPD category, right? Because still you are trying to identify which idea will be which will be the optimized solution that we can pick up as a new product or maybe for future enhancement. In that case, why first of all using sprint? Is there any recommendation, or what is the value that because
We have a deadline actually. By that deadline, we need to finish the task actually, whatever the plan we have, the future sprint goal which we have to move.
Okay, but
Yeah,
in this
I
case
think for
also,
that, time boxing will, like Selvi was telling, time boxing will help you, right? It will be more, even if you are on a sprint, I think the time boxing will reduce the time and then you are adding value to that.
But we are into sprint only.
No, leave the sprint. Don't consider you are working in agile methodology. Give a time box and just try this one for some time.
No. So Mati, the problem is like I am fine. Okay, we have some requirement. You are saying, you and Selvi are saying like we should have a time box by when we need to finish it. Even if we are not able to finish, we need to get the outcome from that request. Correct?
Mhm.
But my
Not
question is
outcome,
like,
I mean approach. Like at least you
approach.
will come to know at least, see, the, the 2 weeks time box, she's trying to say, let's keep it 1 week.
Mm.
1 week sprint. So the failure is predicted even before, right?
Okay, but my question is like, even if the failure is there, but we are not getting the solution from anyone, and we need to get the solution also. That is the challenge.
no, but if there are problems without solution or without approach that is feasible, you cannot expect that, right?
Sorry, come again, Sabi.
No, like if there are 2, 3 items that your team is picking and working, but even in 2 weeks also, if they are not finding solution, they are telling this approach is not going to work. That is also an analysis that you are learning that this is not going to work for this. That is also I won't say it is a solution. At least there is a learning and you will not take up that in future, right? Because for your product, this is not going to suit.
Correct.
So the problem is with sprint length here, because you know that 2 length is little bit long. What are the challenges? What I will face if in this kind of situation means, first thing is your sprint length is 2 weeks, and 2 weeks if you are sitting on one problem, there may be like within 3-4 days only we would have thought of like, okay, this may not work, but still we may be prolonging and waiting for some other things to work, which actually why can't we learn in third day or fourth day itself and give this statement like this is not working. At least people will feel like, okay, you are giving that it is not working on fourth day rather than giving on 9th day or 10th day. So next week you pick up one more approach. So in this way you are also putting a I won't say it is a pressure, but you are kind of like time boxing, and you are reducing the scope, and you are setting a boundary for your team what is the problem and where to focus. Because more and more days, right, the spike why we are trying to reduce the time, we usually say like 5 days or one sprint, just to ensure that people have a focus on the problem, not to broaden their views on multiple things in the spike. So here also, if you narrow down, if you in your case it is much more required because you are in the very new phase of the project, reduce it to 3-4 days. Ask them like a checkpoint. Third day, where are we? Okay, not working. Okay, take to your architect. Fourth day, have the discussion whether to continue or not continue. If there is a chance of continuation, take it in your next sprint. If there is no chance of continuation and your architect is saying that no, I think there is no possibility, even if we continue we are going at the right path, because this is not going to work, you have a approach which got discarded on the 5th day, which is also helping you, right? You can pick up one more topic on your next sprint and evaluate on that.
No, sorry, I'm still not able to understand what the thing is like. Let me again explain. Okay,
No,
I can understand what you are
no,
saying is
no,
use the.
Gunjan, one second. Let me clarify. See, what you are expecting is on a technical solution. Okay, that we will not be able to help. What Selvi and me trying to tell is how, as a Scrum Master, how can you facilitate, bring a solution? Okay, there are two things. You are expecting a solution, I mean, a technical solution for the team, but that we will not be able to bring it. You will be able to only facilitate and shorten the time. What are the different ways they can come up with a solution? The technical solution or a technical approach, only the solution, I mean, only the team or a solution architect or BA, whoever is there, it is they have to come in and then resolve this issue. As a
Okay, but
Scrum Master, what are the values you bring? That is what we are discussing over here.
okay, but what if okay, with you, if we are reducing the time also, okay, but what if even they are not able to get the solution?
No,
we need
that's
to
fine. But see, even 2 weeks also you are not finding solution. What is the outcome of that? We are
no,
losing 2 weeks, right?
I'm fine. I can reduce the sprint from 2 to 1 also. I am with you. Like, let me tell the reason actually why we have 2 weeks. Okay. So I'm working for your project where I have to develop something for your application. Okay. You have a support team also. Okay. Which is going to help me if I have a problem. Okay. So the first step says like for first few days, I need to work on that problem statement, not the problem, but the development. Okay. If I'm stuck somewhere, then I need to reach out to you. Okay. You have a dedicated support team which is going to help me. So what I did, I started working on a story or request, a requirement or feature, whatever we can say. I spent some time. I can't say no on the very first day. Maybe I'm going to use some different ways for first 3 days or 4 days. Okay. The fifth day when I'm going to reach out to your support team, the problem is your support team is also not aware of the new implementations, how we can resolve it. Okay. And now the problem is like I have to wait for your reply. Maybe it can take 5 days also, even it can take 15 days also. So if I'm reducing the sprint length also, it's not going to help me because I have a dependency on you, okay, where you are going to support me. And even you don't know how to support.
That was my first question. When we are not knowing what are the things what we need to cover and what are the blockers it's going to come, then we don't know much clarity, right? We are working on infinity story point story, right?
Yeah.
In that case, why there is a sprint required? It is R&D. It is not like if we use Agile, we mandatorily need to follow sprint and we should put a barricade. You can have many other options to have a checkpoint that without having sprints also. Like in that case, you give some time. You sit with your developer, you sit with the support team, and you sit with the architect. Give very rough estimate. Do not time box them with sprint at all. Then if you are looking for a solution alone and you are not worried about time, then you need to cut
I'm
off.
worried about the time. I'm also worried about the time because I have to deploy something in the future. I have a deadline.
No, then what? See, any one of the things only will work, right? Because they also cannot do magic, the developers, because they don't know how to implement. Means they cannot definitely do some magic. But at the same time, we can only try to find some options which will help them. One option is, I don't know, like if you cannot find out the solution and you have lot of dependencies and lot of uncertainties in your story. First of all, you should not estimate it even with guess work also, because in your with your statement what I'm understanding is you have lot of dependencies because you have a support team and you are taking support from them, and what if they are on festival day and they all are on leave and you don't get a support, you are blocked. So similar kind of dependencies and all, if you have, it is little hard to either detach that dependencies. And but I cannot suggest that also for you, because you told on the way of execution only you will find what are the dependencies coming. So this is something like a complete R&D work. Not at all you know the scope or you know the complete clarity where you can estimate. So in that all scenarios, why a sprint is required? You can just time box it with some like 1 month or 1.5 months, have a checkpoint and evaluate where are we. In between you can check with your architects and developers, right? Because you are targeting a solution. At the same time, you have a time bound. You first understand how many problem statements you have, and for how many problem statements, sit with your team, what is the maximum time we need. And you have some checkpoints in every week or bi-weekly to understand, are they progressing at the right angle? Evaluate with your architect, is this right or can we scrap it now itself? And get a go from them, document it and proceed. And like that, when you reach that deadline, you keep evaluating whether your timeline is also increasing or it is actually on time. Because you have a delivery also getting planned, which will be in so and so time. You cannot go beyond that, right? So you are also responsible to answer your stakeholders. So in that case, you no need to follow sprint, because I don't see any value addition from sprint here. Unnecessarily it will be taking up some time on your scrum events, where you will be calling team for your retrospective every week. They are going, if I am in your team, I will be saying same thing. Gunjan, I have nothing to add. I can go and think of the next approach and look about the things, because they are occupied with so many things with the statement what I'm hearing from you. So at least that time you will be saving, right? It is not necessary to have a sprint mechanism in that case.
So should I use a Kanban in that case? Because I don't have a deadline, the stories will be there, and I won't be able to pressurize them with the timeline actually.
See, you can use, but if it if it is keep on going, where are your checkpoints in Kanban? Like in that case, you need to completely customize your Kanban board in such a way. It should talk about your entry and exit criteria for every phase. Like, okay, I identified the different use cases of the problem. Okay, I resolved the first use case. This is the approach. Call the people and show what they have done. So somewhere, if you are having that kind of visual representation, then you can have that in the columns and you can proceed as a Kanban. But the problem with Kanban is you need to set some whip limit. You cannot ask people to just juggle around the things. That is one thing that you need to see. And you have a time crunch also. Kanban never says that you need to stop something, because it is a continuous flow. So that is one thing you need to see. If you are looking for both time and it is not necessary, we need to always follow some framework, Gunjan. Agile can be even customized according to our requirement. Only thing is what best suits is the matter. Why I suggested not to use sprint is because we will be under pressure. If we are using sprint, we need to follow all the scrum events, even though it is required or not. Right? Sometimes in the name of following all the things in the name of process, we sometimes take up so much time, which is not recommended in your case, because there is no real value that you bring out of the planning meeting, because you know that the same stories which got spill over, the team is going to work, because that is the priority. They know that. So why is planning meeting is required? And you are unable to spend so much time for refinement because you don't know so many clarifications on that. Your product owner also may not be helpful in this case because it's a technical stuff. Your architect is also not clear. So what are we going to sit and do in the refinement? So here, instead of, if you have some checkpoints, it's all about you, how you manage the checkpoints. You can have some simple Kanban board, but your columns will not be same like general columns like in progress review and all, because you need to have a time check every time. So have the time check with some reasonable statements, like for example, what is the place where they are in? They have identified some approach. Okay, approach one failing, passing. Okay, passing. What talk to architect, explain to him or her, and whether go or no go. According to that, you proceed with the next column. Otherwise, discard it here itself. So you will have some kind of clarity in that board.
Okay. So in that case, I need to set up some workflow actually in the Kanban.
Yes, you need to completely customize it accordingly. And you can also create different swim lanes if the problem statements are clubbed according to different categories. You can create multiple swim lanes also, and pick up the priority swim lane and fix some timeline for you, because Kanban generally don't suggest any kind of things. You can call it a scrum ban or whatever the name it may be, but you can completely customize the things. You are only using the board from Kanban. No other things. You are not even going to evaluate your WIP limit, and you are not sure about your cycle time, lead time and all, and you are not sure about your throughput, because it's also a little bit unpredictable, right? So with all these things, you need to be little ensuring that you are not involving so much process, because here more than process, it is all about the outcome what we are going to see from the team.
Yeah. Well, I did suggest it, but I was told like we need to use the Scrum model only. Okay. Sometimes even we have to listen to what we are getting. Okay, yeah, thank you. One quick question, maybe, or maybe we can take it tomorrow if you're above time.
Yeah, Gunjan. Yeah.
So okay, so the question is like, there's a team which has 5 developers and 5 testers. Okay? And the development team, which is when we are having the story point estimation, the most of the time, okay, if I say we are taking 50 story points in a sprint, okay, in that case, ideally more than 35 story points are being a part of development, okay, and only 15 story points are part of testing somewhere, okay. I'm just giving an example. So should I take the complete team capacity and do the estimations on that story points, or should I track the development team only and try to see how many capacity or what are the time they can spend? It should be for team or it should be only for development? When I need to try it, when I need to see how many stories I can pull in a sprint.
It is team capacity, Gunjan. There is nothing called as development capacity, testing capacity. And first of all, I am not sure in practical scenarios whether we will have 50-50 development testers. It generally won't happen in that way. General scenario will be like 2
Three.
testers and 6 developers, something like that. So in that case also we consider for every story there will be more, not every story.
Hello. Sorry, I can't hear Selvi. Mati, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, so let me tell again. Even if the team size is same, then what we need to do? Okay, I am with you. Like we don't do the capacity planning on the behalf of developers and testers. Okay, but if we do the estimations at that time, if I am not wrong, the developers will be overhead, or they will be having more work than what they have the actual capacity, because the work they need to do in the sprint, okay, 70% of the work is dependent on the development only.
Okay. Gunjan, can we discuss this tomorrow?
No issues,
Yeah,
no issues.
yeah. Okay.